Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Deep Dive.
Yeah.
Diving deep into the stuff that matters to us. And today we're tackling something you're clearly fired up about, judging by the mountain of articles you sent our way.
Yeah, looks like we're getting into hydration for athletic performance today.
You got it. We've got advice from a Stanford sports dietitian, research from fitness institutes, even tips from sports physiotherapy centers. Looks like you're serious about getting the most out of your workouts, and that's exactly what we're here to do.
It's amazing, really, the amount of info out there. And the thing is, even seasoned athletes sometimes, they have these misconceptions about hydration.
Oh, for sure. It's easy to get things mixed up, especially when you're focused on pushing your limits.
Mm.
Speaking of which, that Stanford article starts with a pretty wild story, right?
Yes, so this sports dietitian, she ends up in the ER, severe dehydration.
Whoa, seriously.
And then to make matters worse, she tries to fix it by just chugging plain water.
Oh, wow. Okay. I've definitely been guilty of that after a hard workout. Just pounding water like it's going out of style. So what happened?
Turns out just guzzling water can totally backfire. She ended up with something called hyponatremia.
Hyponatremia. Yeah.
It basically means her blood sodium levels got way too low. It's actually pretty serious, can really mess with how fluids move in and out of your cells.
So it's not just about the fluids, it's about the balance of fluids and electrolytes, right?
Exactly. And get this, the symptoms of hypernatremia, they can actually be mistaken for dehydration, like nausea, confusion, even seizures. It can get pretty scary.
Yeah, that does not sound good.
So yeah, understanding electrolytes, it's key. It's not just about how much you're drinking.
All right, so electrolytes, we're getting a crash course here.
Mm.
But let's back up for a sec. Why is dehydration itself so dangerous? Especially for those of us who love to push our limits.
Well, when we sweat, right, we're losing more than just water. We're losing electrolytes too. Sodium, potassium, all that good stuff.
Right. Makes sense.
And those are crucial. Muscle function, nerve signaling, everything. The articles, they all emphasize this. Even losing just 2% of your body weight through sweat, that can have a noticeable impact on your performance.
This is like we hear all the time, drink 8 glasses of water a day. Isn't that enough?
Those general guidelines, they're a good starting point. But they're not personalized. The Australian Institute of Fitness, they had a great article on this. Athletes, they might need anywhere from 2 to 8 cups of water per hour during exercise. Think about that. That's a huge range.
That is a huge range. All right, so how do we figure out what WE need? Not just this generic advice. I remember seeing something called the Galpin equation, but I'm a little fuzzy on the details.
Ah, yes, the Galpin equation. So it's your body weight in pounds divided by 30, and that equals the ounces of water you should drink every 15 minutes.
Okay, that sounds simple enough, but is it really that straightforward?
Well, the thing is, it's based on one small study. So it might not be accurate for everyone. A better approach, and this is something the Stanford article highlighted, is this idea of trust but verify.
Trust but verify. Okay, I like the sound of that. Break that down for me.
Basically, it means listening to your body's cues, right, but also using some objective measures to make sure you're on track. Some people, they have a great sense of thirst. They know exactly when to drink. Others, not so much.
I can definitely see that.
And especially as we get older, that thirst mechanism, it can become less reliable.
Makes sense. So besides chugging water till we feel like a water balloon, how can we actually tell if we're hydrating right?
Well, a really simple way is to just check the color of your urine in the morning.
Ah, yes, the p-test.
Yeah, dark yellow usually means you need more fluids. But, got to keep in mind some vitamins and medications can affect the color too.
So if we want something a little more precise, what are our options?
This is where we get into some real data. Calculating your sweat rate.
Sweat rate? Okay, how do we do that?
Weigh yourself naked before and after a workout.
Okay.
But make sure you account for any food, drinks, or bathroom breaks. The difference, that's roughly how much fluid you've lost through sweat.
So that number on the scale after a killer workout, it might actually be a good thing. It's data.
Exactly. Data is power, right? Track your sweat rate under different conditions too, because it can change depending on the heat, humidity, even what you're wearing. Once you know how much you're losing, you can plan to replace it.
That makes a lot of sense. So we've got the water intake down. Now, how about those electrolytes? How do we make sure we're getting enough of those?
All right, so during those intense workouts, your body needs more than just plain water. And that's where sports drinks can be helpful, because they've got those electrolytes, especially sodium, which helps your body hold on to those fluids.
Right, sports drinks. I've always been a little hesitant about those, though. Aren't they full of sugar?
That's true. A lot of them are pretty high in sugar, but the key here is using them strategically. For a short workout, water might be enough. But for longer, more intense sessions, especially in the heat, those electrolytes and extra carbs, they can make a real difference.
So it's about matching the drink to the workout. Short and sweet, water's good. Long and tough, bring on the electrolytes. But what about people who really push it to the max, like endurance athletes? Is it a whole different ballgame for them?
That's a great question, and it's actually the perfect segue into our next section. Yeah, so endurance athletes, they're a perfect example of, how crucial hydration really is. We're talking marathon runners, triathletes, cyclists on those long hauls. They're at a really high risk of dehydration and electrolyte imbalance just because they're out there for so long.
Yeah, I mean, you're basically sweating for hours on end. It makes total sense that they need more than just water.
Right, and we touched on sodium before, but it's a big deal for them, right? They can lose a ton of it through sweat. That Australian Institute of Fitness article, they mentioned up to 1.5 grams per liter. That's a lot of sodium. And if they're not replacing it, hyponatremia, it becomes a serious risk.
So how do they prevent that? Is it just a matter of like munching on salty snacks throughout a marathon?
I mean, yeah, salty snacks can help a bit, but it's got to be more strategic than that. For anything over 2 hours, a lot of experts recommend sports drinks with more sodium. And those electrolyte tablets, those can be super helpful too.
So it's kind of like having a toolkit of options, right? Sports drinks, tablets, even some salty snacks.
Yeah,
You can kind of tailor it to the situation of what you prefer.
totally. And don't forget those carbohydrate electrolyte drinks we were talking about earlier. Those are particularly good for endurance athletes because they're getting both electrolytes and sustained energy from the carbs.
It's like a two-for-one deal for them. Now, all this talk about endurance makes me think about another workout style where hydration seems super important. HIIT, high intensity interval training.
You're right on the money. HIIT and, similar high intensity stuff like CrossFit, they're really demanding on the body.
Yeah, even though those workouts are shorter, you're going all out, right? Heart rate's through the roof, you're drenched in sweat. It's a whole different challenge than a long, steady run.
Yeah,
You know,
that's a big difference, right? With HIIT, your body's producing so much heat and you're sweating a lot in a short amount of time. So even if you're not working out as long, you're still losing a ton of fluids and electrolytes.
so the basic principles still apply, right? Prehydrate, replenish during, rehydrate afterward. But with HIIT, you got to be even more on top of it.
You got it. Waiting until you're thirsty during a triad session, it's already too late. You want to start hydrated and use those rest periods to sip on some water or an electrolyte drink.
It's almost like those bursts of activity with the rest periods. It's perfect for hydration breaks.
Yeah, I mean, use those breaks wisely. And don't forget to rehydrate afterward. Even if you only worked out for 20 minutes, you still got to replenish those fluids.
This is really making me rethink things. It's
Yeah.
like I'm starting to see hydration not just as a way to avoid the bad stuff, but as a way to actually improve my performance.
That's the mindset. When you're properly hydrated, your muscles work better, your cardiovascular system can deliver oxygen and nutrients more efficiently, your brain's sharper.
It's like you're giving your body the best possible environment to perform. And this isn't just about those intense workouts, right? Staying hydrated throughout the day, that's got to help with energy levels, focus, overall well-being, right?
Absolutely. It's crazy how something as simple as hydration can have such a big impact.
I know, right? This deep dive has been eye-opening, for sure. We've gone way beyond just drinking water, haven't we? We've talked about the science behind it, the risks, specific strategies based on what your body needs and how you're working out.
I'm glad you're finding it helpful. It's all about giving you the knowledge to make the best choices for your body and your performance.
Well, speaking of choices, you mentioned earlier how even experienced athletes can underestimate hydration. What do you think is behind that?
Well, I think it's partly because those early signs of dehydration, they can be pretty subtle. Like you might feel a little tired, maybe a slight headache, and not even realize it's because you're dehydrated.
So we could be dehydrated and not even know it, and it could be affecting how we perform.
Yeah, definitely possible. And, there's also that tendency to focus on all the other stuff, right? Nutrition, proper form, and hydration kind of gets pushed aside. It seems basic, but it's the foundation for everything else.
It's like building a house on a shaky foundation.
Yeah.
No matter how good the rest of the structure is, if the foundation's weak, it's all going to be compromised.
Perfect analogy. And honestly, I think there's also a bit of a toughness mentality, in some athletic circles, like admitting you're thirsty or that you need a water break. It's seen as a sign of weakness.
That's so interesting. There's a stigma around hydration, which is crazy when you think about how much it affects performance.
I know, right? We got to shift that mindset.
Hmm.
Recognizing your hydration needs and taking care of yourself, that's smart, not weak.
It's about putting your health and performance first. And hydration is a big part of that. It's also funny, there's this misconception that sports drinks are only for, like, elite athletes.
Totally. But like we talked about, they can be beneficial for anyone who's pushing themselves, you know? Intense exercise, long workouts, it's not just for the pros. And even if sports drinks aren't your thing, there are so many other options out there.
Right. Electrolyte tablets, salty snacks, even just a pinch of salt in your water. So many ways to personalize it. We've covered so much ground today. Any final words of wisdom for our listeners who are ready to take their hydration game to the next level?
You know, the most important thing is to pay attention to your body. Don't ignore those first signs of thirst or fatigue.
Right. Those are our body's way of talking to us. We got to listen.
Exactly. And then figure out what works best for you. Everyone's different, right? Some strategies work better for some people than others. Don't be afraid to experiment a little.
That personalization aspect is key.
And finally, if you're struggling or if you just want a more personalized plan, talk to an expert. A sports dietitian, a certified personal trainer, they can help.
That's great advice. It's all about empowering ourselves with knowledge and finding the resources that help us be our best.
Yeah.
This whole deep dive, it's really changed how I think about hydration. I'm definitely inspired to pay more attention and make sure I'm giving my body what it needs.
I love to hear that. It's all about making informed choices and feeling good about how you're supporting your body.
Well said. And on that note, it's about time to wrap up this deep dive. But before we go, I want to leave you with one final thought-provoking question. What if, instead of just seeing hydration as, a basic need, we started viewing it as a performance enhancer? Could optimizing our fluid intake actually take our workouts to a whole new level?
Wow, that's a really cool question. It really makes you think about hydration in a new light, doesn't it? We usually just focus on being thirsty or not, but what if we saw it as a way to unlock our full potential?
It makes you wonder, have we been holding ourselves back without even knowing it? We've seen today how even being a little bit dehydrated can mess with our performance, and how the right hydration strategies can benefit everything, how our muscles work, how clearly we think.
Yeah, it's almost like we've been working at a disadvantage this whole time, and just by paying attention to our hydration, we could make a huge difference.
Like we've been given this secret weapon, and now it's up to us to use it.
I love that analogy. We've explored the science, the risks, the strategies. Now it's about applying that knowledge and seeing how it impacts your own journey as an athlete or just someone who wants to feel their best.
Exactly. So to our listener, we encourage you to take this information, try it out, see what works for you, experiment, find what's best for your body and your workouts.
And remember, hydration isn't just for workout days. Make it a habit. Stay hydrated every single day.
It's like a form of self-care,
Wow.
a way to show your body respect, to give it what it needs to be healthy and strong.
And hey, who knows? Maybe that next personal best is just a few sips of water away.
I love that. A great thought to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into hydration and athletic performance.
It was my pleasure. Until next time, when we'll take another deep dive into a topic that matters to you.
It really does. We often think about hydration as, oh, I'm thirsty, I need to drink some water. But what if we flip the script?
Right.
What if we started thinking about it as like a secret weapon, a way to actually boost our performance?
I love that. A secret weapon. Because in a way, it kind of is, isn't it?
Yeah. We've seen throughout this whole deep dive, even about being a little dehydrated can throw things off.
Yeah.
And when we get it right, hydration can help with, well, everything really. Our muscles, our brains, our energy levels.
It's almost like we've been, I don't know, kind of handicapping ourselves. And just by paying closer attention to hydration, we could be unlocking this whole new level of performance.
Exactly. It's like we've had the key this whole time, but we just haven't known how to use it. And now, well, the secret's out.
I like that. The secret's out. So what do we do with this newfound knowledge? Well, we put it into practice.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where you come in, dear listener. Take all this info we've been talking about and see what works for you.
Right. Everybody's different. What works for one person might not work for another. So experiment. Find what feels good, what helps you perform at your best.
And don't forget, hydration isn't just about those big workouts. It's about taking care of yourself day in and day out. Make it a habit.
Absolutely. It's a simple thing, but it can make a world of difference.
Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive.
Sounds good to me.
But before we go, I want to leave you with this one thought. Something we touched on earlier, but it's worth repeating. What if that next personal best, that breakthrough moment, What if it's just a few sips of water away? Something to think about, right?
Definitely. A great thought to end on.
So thank you for joining us on this deep dive into hydration and athletic performance. We hope you learned something new and that you're feeling inspired to take your hydration game to the next level.
It was great to be here. And until next time, keep on diving deep into the stuff that matters to you.